What is going on with the recent change with Kindle ebook downloads? What is all this fuss over YouTubers and TikTokers telling you have to download all your Kindle ebooks right away? And does this all mean that the sky is falling and there is endless doom and chaos in the publishing industry? I am here to help clarify this, get you up to date on this latest element in the publishing world, and to help you feel clarified and equipped on what you can do next. This is Gina Polito with a special recording of Author Culture. All right, now, quick little public service announcement. I am recording this while I am recovering from a head cold, and so if I sound a little bit nasally and a little bit rough around the edges, it's because I, by the grace of God, actually have enough of a voice this afternoon to record this. So I thank you for listening to my less than stellar recording today. This was considered too important for me to put this off to another time, especially because when I'm doing recordings on more current topics, everything changes so fast that if you don't get it recorded then it just disappears and no one really cares anymore. So you are getting my voice authentically the way it is. Another caveat, you know me, I am not a fan of the sky is falling kind of post. I don't think those things are helpful. All this being said, I have been made aware that sometimes having a balanced perspective on the ups and downs of our chaotic publishing world is important. And since I strive to do this myself when reviewing information, I figure I'd start doing some more current episodes, inviting you into those thought processes. The goal isn't to try and stir up more controversy, but actually to de-escalate it, break down the existing scenario, help you figure out where you stand with that, and what your next best steps are in navigating that scenario. And just a heads up, future episodes like this will likely be paid subscribers only, not because I'm trying to be a big meanie, but because when I do this kind of work in particular, I have to basically stop everything and do several hours minimum of research to make sure that I'm presenting you with the best quality material that I can at that time. That takes my time and effort. So that's the way that's going to look in the future. But this one is a freebie for all of you to enjoy, and I hope it does help you out. Now, the way I'm going to organize this is I'm going to evaluate the perspectives being presented. I'm going to estimate the impact on the publishing marketplace, and then I'm going to be equipping you to take whatever next steps make sense for you. So evaluate, estimate, and equip. I'll always try to acknowledge my pre-existing biases, lest they sneak in without me realizing it, and offer multiple next steps you can take based on the situation. And always, this is my real-time commentary, so things could absolutely change at a moment's notice. That's why it's called the chaotic publishing world. Sound good? Awesome. Let's dive into this. So we are evaluating Amazon's changes to their policy and to users' ability to download ebooks that they have purchased through Amazon. This is in regards to a recent change Amazon made, and I am reading this from an article in The Verge, updated on February 14th, 2025. Starting on February 26, 2025, Amazon is removing a feature from its website allowing you to download purchased books to a computer and then copy them manually to a Kindle over USB. So you could download books that you bought and put them on your USB manually. Now, these days, a lot of people just use Wi-Fi to get their Kindle books, so they're not even using this. But this can be helpful when you're backing up purchases or converting them to other formats compatible with non-Kindle e-readers. This can be helpful if you don't have access to a Wi-Fi network, which in the past I didn't. And according to this Verge article, while it's a tedious process since purchased books can only be downloaded one at a time, there's some peace of mind in knowing you have offline copies of all your books. This is also the easiest way to convert books purchased from Amazon to other formats like EPUB that can be used on alternative devices such as a Kobo. Books downloaded through Amazon's website are delivered in the older AZW3 format, which allows DRM, which is digital rights management, to be easily removed using various software tools. So that's a lot going on there. And I will be including a link to this article for you to review it for yourself. But this is naturally getting into interesting and squishy territory because digital media is weird. The laws around it are confusing and always in flux. And us as physical humans who live in a tactile world still struggle to figure out how to make something as intangible as an ebook fit into our framework overall. And I will refer back to a time when I was teaching at a conservative Christian school, which you would consider conservative, having very specific, very traditional ideas around theft and how you shouldn't steal because it's one of the 10 Commandments. And I had a number of high school students, and this was back in 2015, so 10 years ago, a number of high school students told me that stealing digital content was not theft because you couldn't touch it. I asked them, if you stole a candy bar, is that theft? And they said, yes, that's theft. And I said, if you downloaded a song without paying for it, is that theft? And a lot of them said no. I said, if you stole a book, if you downloaded a book without paying for it, a digital file, is that theft? And they said no, because you can't touch it. Because it's not really theft because it's not really something that's using your hands. Now, admittedly, their logic was a little bit flawed in terms of relying entirely on being able to touch something. But the thing is, there is a psychological impact in there. There is a psychological aspect to the fact that if you can't touch it, it does feel less real, and it doesn't feel like it should cost as much. It doesn't feel like it might be worth as much. It doesn't matter how much time went into it because you can't hold it, feel it, touch it, smell it, taste it. Something in our brains often says, well, it's just not as valuable. And I believe that that psychological impact of the digital media really gets overlooked sometimes in these cases. And if you're an author who is wondering why your books get pirated so easily, understand that no matter how much work and effort you've put into that ebook, you're selling that ebook in a culture that says, I can't touch it, I can't feel it, I can't taste it. Inherently, it doesn't have as much value. It must not have taken as much work. And people have tried over the years to kind of reprogram the human brain to value digital files more highly, but it's an uphill battle when on the other end we have streaming services that are piling tons and tons of digital content on there, all for the price of $10 a month. So that's the culture that you're navigating here. Now, a lot of noise has been made about this whole situation and about how it is unfair for Amazon to do this to their books. And there is one particular YouTuber called Crimin Ollie. I'll link to the video below. He read these articles from The Verge. And then there was another article, I believe, I found it from Tech Radar. There's another one from The Good E-Reader. He read them and did a video about them. And as videos can do sometimes, his video went viral. Now, I assessed his online presence. He's an active book blogger and booktuber in his words, crime, pulp, horror, that kind of thing genre. He specializes in older horror and thrillers you don't normally see on YouTube, as well as reviews of new releases. He has an active members-only section on YouTube and has an active Patreon with almost 2,000 members. So he has put in the work. This isn't something where I would say he was trying to capitalize or stir up controversy at all. And I think if anyone is trying to say, oh, well, he was just trying to go viral and he was just trying to stir up dissension, I don't believe that's true at all. This is someone who is putting up 5 videos a week. His videos average from 1K to 6K views. And he's regularly doing this. There's nothing to indicate in his presence or his online behavior that he was trying to stir up controversy. I believe it was just simply one of those things where he put up content at a certain time. The algorithms ran with it. People kept clicking on it. And it just kept going up and up and up. And this particular video at the time of recording this podcast on February 22nd has gotten 957,000 views. Now, in terms of the video content itself, it's presented very simple, straightforward, in a modest fashion. He has a pleasant vocal cadence. I'm sure in some ways those kind of stylistic choices do help to enhance viewership and get people to listen more. But the thing is, he's been doing that anyway with all of his videos. That's just how he shows up. So in terms of his content presentation and all of that, I don't see a manipulation there. And I think anyone who would say that he is trying to be manipulative or that he was trying to go viral is also unfair to that. There is no evidence of that here. He seems like a very, to use a Britishism, he seems like a very decent chap overall who is simply giving his own opinions. And having watched his video, he brings up some interesting perspectives that I would like to reply to here. He notes that there's been a move towards subscription-based services, which I've seen as well, and he expresses concern that he will not be able to own the ebooks the way he felt that he owned them in the past. I completely understand and sympathize with this perspective. Less and less content that streaming services make is being released onto, for instance, DVD, because the streaming services business model only works if your customers are paying every month. So you basically have to keep that content there. I've bemoaned this myself because, I love the live action adaptation of the One Piece anime series. I love it. And it's only on Netflix. And I'd love to buy that series in DVD for friends who don't have Netflix, as a gift. And you used to be able to buy series and DVD. But the thing is, Netflix knows that the adaptation is a hit. They're making the second season, and they have no interest in having me become a one-time customer, only buying the DVD series and then leaving their platform when they can create a sales environment where if I decide to comfort rewatch it, I have to pay them again. I have to keep paying them that price again. It makes perfect sense as a business model for them, and there is nothing illegal about this. And I just want to toss it in there because a lot of times in the comments with these kind of situations, everyone cries, this is illegal, this is illegal. Legality is not the same as morality, and something that you may personally think is right or wrong doesn't necessarily mean it's illegal or legal. I am not saying that we shouldn't care about morality, but let's just be careful about our terms here. But going back to the idea of streaming services and things seeming unfair, I completely sympathize with that myself. But then I have to say, well, you know what? Netflix put all the money into making that content. They made that live action of One Piece. They get to choose to do with it what they want. Them and the original creators that they created the licensing deal with and are in partnership with. Now, moving ahead, the YouTuber expresses that he thinks he has a right to own an ebook and do whatever he likes. That is, once he has paid the money, the digital file is his. My immediate question I ask is, does downloading an ebook grant you full legal ownership of the book in the way that it does a paperback? Nope. And I actually have an article from the NYU Journal of Intellectual Property and Entertainment Law that you can review on this. You are buying a license to read. They actually put laws in place because they suspected that there would be some difficulty as soon as digital content like ebooks became really popular, that there would be some difficulty with people pirating things. And so there are laws about ownership versus licensing in terms of ebooks. And a question I bring from this is, even in the era of owning VHS tapes and DVDs, do you truly own that digital content and can do whatever you like with it? We all know that's not true. That's why you have that little black screen with the white letters on it before VHS tapes saying, any unauthorized copies of this are in violation of the law, Now, people would just skim through that and make copies anyway, the same thing they would do for DVDs. But guess what? It is illegal to do that without permission. The same way that if you were going to take a paperback book and make photocopies of it and just hand them out to everyone, that would also be in violation of copyright, unless that book is in fact public domain. And even then, you have to make sure that there's not a copyright of that particular version of the public domain. Things get fiddly. Not a lawyer. I know just enough to get me into trouble. So I'm saying here right now, not a lawyer. If you have any questions about the deeper legal matters of this, you need to talk to a lawyer. This in no way is advice for your particular question or case. But even from that, we can understand that the idea that you can download an ebook and own it completely and use it however you like is simply not legally true. And as authors, we don't want that to be true because we don't want someone to be able to download an ebook and then legally be able to put it like on pirate websites or completely plagiarize it and put it as their own. We don't want them to be able to do that. We want 30 protections about that. So it's an interesting thing where from this perspective of this video, he's definitely speaking very authentically as a reader and as a reader only. He's not thinking about the author's perspective in this at all. He is thinking a little bit about Amazon, mostly attributing negative motivations to them, which may not entirely be off base, but he's not thinking about the authorial perspective in this video. which is fine. He is a booktuber and a reviewer who is speaking from his perspective as a reader. This YouTuber further brings up that sometimes books can be removed from the Kindle store and from Kindle devices. So despite the fact that someone bought this book, Kindle took it away from them. He mentions that they do often give refunds, and that for the most part, the reason the book was taken down was because of copyright infringements. Again, as authors, we want Amazon to take down books if they are plagiarizing our content. If you find a book that's an identical copy of your book and it's been plagiarized, you want to be able to email Amazon and say, take it down. You want that book to come out of people's libraries. So that's where things get interesting and kind of dicey in terms of the readers declaring vocally, I want my rights. And the author's going, I know, and I respect that. And we may all agree that the Zon is like that gorilla that you don't want to work with. But some of these things may not be completely Amazon being evil. He also points out that re-edited versions of books have been auto-downloaded to Kindles and replace the existing versions of books that people originally bought. This is standard. This happens all the time. And in some cases, authors are okay with that because they didn't like the early version of the book and they wanted to rework it. So it's really interesting how that as well can be something maybe authors want, but readers don't want. It's bringing up an interesting conflict here in this reader and author culture and relationship. He then notices that this method of where you can't download your Amazon books and use them however you like, that you can't use them outside of the Amazon ecosystem, it ties you into Amazon. Totally agree. And it's the same thing as streaming services. And if you don't like that, that is valid and legit. And then he finishes with, I can't think of why, from a consumer perspective, Amazon would want to do this. And that's the trick, is that there's actually a lot of reasons Amazon would want to do this, including the fact that their new versions of their files, according to The Verge, books downloaded through Amazon's website are delivered in the older AZW3 format, which allows their digital rights management to be removed using various software tools. It makes them easier to pirate. So, of course, Amazon wouldn't want to keep using that format, that easy to download, easy to be decoded format, because it means the ebooks can be more easily pirated. But I suppose from a consumer perspective, you're not really as concerned with pirated books. Going back to the idea of while readers might be concerned about pirated books, if you bring it to their attention, a pirated digital book isn't the same as stealing a book from a bookshelf in the eyes of many people. No one is being quote unquote hurt by it. It is simply a file that is just going onto a new location. Because the whole idea of the internet started with a strong culture of sharing information and making things free. And because so much content in the early stages was free, it's this whole can of worms that you can't put back in the box. And people have been culturally trained, both through the psychology of it's not real because I can't feel it and touch it and taste it and see it, and then through the expectation that they should be able to get free content. People have been trained not to really value ebooks, and I don't see how you're going to be able to affect a culture-wide transformation of that, which is why you might see or hear other experts simply say, and not all of them, but some of them will say, don't worry about pirated books because you can't really control it. And it's true, you can't get to the pirates as fast as they can get to your books. Now, I don't think that that necessarily means you should give up the fight. I think that is based on your convictions. But when experts say that, they're not trying to say that your ebook doesn't have value. They're trying to say that this cultural shift is so huge and it's happened so definitively that we can't get those worms back in the can. You literally can't control every single last file of your book. Now, going back to this video, on the whole, the information was well presented, thoughtful, authentically from his POV. He was not in any way hiding any kind of bias. He was being open about his perspective, and that was completely fine. In terms of this video itself, and I'm particularly responding to this video because it went so viral. In terms of this video, a couple of items of pushback. You do not legally own your ebook in the way that he says you do. Actually, you can't technically do whatever you want with a movie or DVD either, by the way, or paperback book. They are from people over the decades who have illegally copied VHSs, DVDs, and even paperback books. It's sort of an acceptable breaking of the law. So that is the evaluation of the material. In terms of the legal aspects of this, the guy who made this video, not a legal expert. The Verge article was made by a journalist, not a legal expert. I am not a legal expert, so if you want to dive into the deep, complex world of intellectual property law and entertainment and media law, feel free. I am in no way giving you legal guidance. This in no way constitutes legal guidance. But I did want to draw your attention to some of the laws and encourage you to research that more if you want to, because there's a lot of things that people believe about the laws that aren't actually true. Now, on to estimation of the cultural impact. Right now, there's a lot of noise on YouTube and social media about this situation. Part of this is well thought out, considered, and offers new value to the discussion. So there are some videos and content out there that are really doing some deep and thoughtful consideration. There is also a lot of reactionary content and spreading ideas that are a little better than a rumor mill. This is very typical about how people operate and communicate in culture, especially online. So just always make sure that you're doing your research, do some Googling, go to websites that are actually connected with reputable legal sources and not just some bloggers' thoughts on it. And I suspect that some people are hoping this controversy will fuel enough of a fire to make Amazon back down. I don't think it's likely in this case because Amazon didn't even declare this publicly, which means they see it as a private matter, plus they're Amazon. So that's a thing too, is that Amazon didn't declare this publicly, that they were going to make it impossible for you to download your ebooks and put them on other non-Amazon devices. They just did it. And the thing is, they are Amazon, so they have a whole army of lawyers. So I don't think this is going to fuel enough of a fire to make Amazon back down. A lot of people are declaring boycotts from Amazon. Now, people have been boycotting Amazon for a lot of reasons for a while that have nothing to do with this. So that is nothing new. This is just adding more fuel to the fire. And maybe if it's someone who was already having issues with Amazon, this is going to make them take that final step, which is legit. People are allowed to not buy things from one place and buy them from a different place. That is called living in a free market economy. They can do that. Unless Amazon does something else really crazy between now and like the next couple of months, I predict this will die down pretty soon in favor of the next big catastrophe. Understand that social media and YouTube thrive on drama. So I predict that unless Amazon makes some kind of move on their end or something crazy goes down, this is going to die down. That could be wrong, but the odds are there's enough other crazy things happening in the public and political sphere. This is not going to stick around for long. While I don't bring up politics in particular on this podcast, culture exists in a political world and politics are part of culture. The current U.S. leadership, as of early 2025, has been making a lot of bold actions that have put people on edge for one reason or another. I would be remiss if I didn't point out that this atmosphere does impact everyone else's temperaments, especially because politicians know how to play social media games. So people are in a rather reactionary place right now in general. Either that or they're just off social media, which is legit too. Now, could this whole thing blow up into a huge mess of absolute doom with Amazon book prices falling and all of that? Sure. Anything is possible, but I don't see much evidence to predict or suggest that this is going to crash Amazon's book sales, especially because of another fact about those book sales that I'm going to bring up in the equipping section. So we've evaluated the material, we've estimated the cultural impact. Now let's talk about equipping you to handle this and make your best choices, both as an author and as a reader, because I assume that you are both. Readers, if you read Amazon books and download them, you could go in and download all of your ebooks from Kindle. Now, I'm not going to do this because I do not have the time. I work in book marketing, so I already use Kindle Unlimited and the ecosystem for my daily research. That's not changing. They're going to keep getting my money because I keep spending that money so I can do research and figure out things that are trending and all of that. Also, if I really want to own a book, I just buy a paperback so I can get it signed and all of that. Hence, my house will eventually just become one giant library of paperbacks, and I am really okay with this, and so is my husband. So sometimes your life choices really make life better, such as having more books than clothes or anything else in your house. But if you decide to go ahead and download everything, do it soon because you only have until February 26th, 2025. So go ahead and do it now. There are plenty of videos on YouTube that will teach you how to do it. You could also boycott all books from Amazon, but also consider where your favorite authors are and how you can support them best. Some authors are Amazon exclusive for ebooks because it's still where they make the most income. Going wide with ebooks is actually very tricky for a lot of genres, and when you're selling books wide, as in wide distribution, it's very time consuming, can require a lot of upfront investment of time and money, and also requires that the author have a significant backlist to have a chance of seeing a profit. And even then, I have seen authors go from having their books wide to back in Kindle Unlimited, even with a large backlist, because it's so much effort. It's a completely different strategy and mindset to do it. And some authors don't have the time. So understanding that if you boycott Amazon books, it could hurt those authors, and it's not going to hurt Jeff Bezos a single dime. Amazon actually uses their books as a loss leader to encourage people onto the online storefront to buy other items that are more valuable. So they're not making all their money on books, but your favorite author might be using Amazon as the only place that makes sense for them. Now, if your convictions still lead you to boycott Amazon, go ahead and do it. But do it with the understanding of what your boycott actually produces. It helps you to align with your convictions, which is always a thing. It also can mean less sales for your favorite authors, and it pretty much has zero impact on Amazon. Really, really. And if you are going to boycott Amazon, then see about buying books from your favorite authors other ways or supporting them in other ways. So if you're not going to buy their books from the only place their books are selling, see if you can become an ARC reader. Make sure you always review their books. Maybe reach out personally and say, hey, because of this, I'm not going to buy your books through Amazon. Is there another way I can get them? Authors don't get those messages from readers saying, hey, wouldn't it be cool if you did this? I love your books. Can you make this work? So rather than just do a silent boycott and say, well, they're my favorite author, but whatever, see if there are ways that you can encourage them and make things work for both of you. Now, for authors, I do not recommend that you decide to go to wide distribution of your ebooks solely based on this change from Amazon. Going wide with ebooks takes a lot of effort, time, and commitment. I have gone through the courses, I have studied the methods, and I've done the research. It requires a completely different connection and sales strategy. If all the panic over this makes you feel like you have to go wide, then don't. Take a pause, look at the data for your books over the next few months, and then make decisions. Now, if you were already planning on going wide and you've done your homework and strategy, and then this is just the catalyst, then go ahead and do what you're going to do anyway. And if you're going wide due to your authentic convictions about Amazon, then go ahead and do it. Going wide does take a lot of effort, but if you're ready for it and you're ready to put in your game face, then go forth and be awesome. For Kindle Unlimited authors, this really shouldn't impact you at all since readers are borrowing your books anyway. They know they don't own them. That's the nature of Kindle Unlimited. So the only way you'll lose money is if readers get fired up by all the social media, furor, and outrage content and decide to leave. But the readers in Kindle Unlimited are there because it's a good deal for the amount of books you get to read. That's a financial reason. And at least in the US, inflation is still a factor, so I expect Kindle Unlimited readers to still quietly keep reading because Kindle Unlimited is simply the most affordable way for them to get books. And some of them might go to Kobo, but let's face it, Kindle Unlimited still has the biggest selection. I don't see this impacting Kindle Unlimited at all. I went into several different Facebook reader groups, and they're all like, this doesn't impact me. I read in KU. I'm borrowing books anyway. I don't get what the big deal is. So hopefully this has been helpful as you sort out this latest little bit of chaos in the publishing world. Take all of this under advisement, do your own research, make the choices that make sense for you. Treat others as you would want to be treated, whether they agree with your convictions or not. This is not something to lose friends over here. Really, really just do what you need to do according to your convictions, your life season, and your goals, and keep writing and reading fantastic books. This is Janita Polito. Go forth and be awesome.